to do a copy of a study by the Austrian 20th century artist Gustav Klimt. And this is what's called a lost profile. When you do your narrative pieces, you may not have all the figures facing you. And so it's good to practice drawing the faces of people whose heads are turned away. That's what we're seeing here. So we're going to think about the cranium as a little bit foreshortened and with a slight tilt upward like that. Can you see that? You can draw this lighter. I'm drawing it a little darker so you can see it. And the jaw, the ear is not centered on the cranium. It's a little bit in front of center because the head is turned away from us. And the jaw is wrapping around like that. And make sure you have the right amount of tilt here. This is very important. See, that's the line, that's the angle we're looking for. If I draw it on here, you can see my pencil is parallel to that red line. And if you hold your drawing up, it should be also parallel to those lines. That angle is going to be really important. And we can see that if we run from the top of the eye to where the top of the ear should be, we end up about 90 degrees from that line. The reason we're not 90 degrees is because the hat is pushing the ear downward. Okay. So we located the ear hole. The eye, let's check and see if the eye is centered on the head. That's something we always want to ask ourselves. So if we follow this, that's the eye level. The top of the head is about here, and the bottom of the chin is about here. So we can measure and see that the eyes, it's definitely centered on the head. So if we mark top of the skull, bottom of the chin, we can establish our eye level right in the middle there. And if we follow from the back of the cranium, which is just below the ear hole, that gets us to around the bottom of the nose. And that's centered between the eyebrow and the bottom of the chin. So these are the typical proportions that we've learned. If we go from the eyebrow, bottom of the cranium, bottom of the chin. So this is centered between here and here. This is centered between here and here. That's sort of the geometry of what we're seeing. It's very typical proportions. Nothing out of the ordinary. We are going to create this hat. We're looking for the form of this hat is going to help us a lot, but we're going to think of it as a simplified geometric form with straight edges instead of curves. Notice it drops down a little bit below eye level, comes up behind the cranium, slopes forward, and back down. Most of you are going to want to make the hat too small part of the drawing. Notice the hat is, from this angle, we're seeing a lot more of the hat than we are of the face. And we're going to block in the collar too, like this, and the neck. like this. And we may as well just throw in the back of the collar as well, right there. So everyone measure with me right now just to check your work. This is what I really care about. This distance, chin to eye level, same as eye level to the top of the head. So I can make my hat a little higher. The hat occupies a little more space. And then this level, chin to nose, is the same as nose to eyebrow. So check your work. These measurements have to be correct before you proceed. And I want to see you check those independently. I'm not going to come around and look right now. Okay. I think I'm going to do this a little differently now. I'm going to just let you watch me sketch the profile. And then you're going to do it. So just take a little pause and watch me do this. One of our goals is a lot of artists, they lean too much on only repeating, making their line do the same thing over and over again. This is how I used to draw, like this. A lot of you still do this. And you'll notice you're not learning to do anything interesting with your hand. It's like you're repeating the same move over and over again. By practicing doing a lot of pen drawing, I learned to do something more like this, where I'm trying to make my hand change direction multiple times over the course of a contour. And that's when drawing gets a lot more fun, when you're able to do this. And now that I kind of know my proportions, I can, and if you draw with a pen all day long, this is pretty much the only way you can draw, because you don't have the ability to throw in all those construction lines. So why don't you just watch for a minute, and then you try it and see how it goes. Like I have the basic roadmap here, and now I'm just drawing freehand, but I'm staying within these boundaries that I've already established. Okay, so that's not perfect by any means, but it's more spontaneous than the kind of work we did earlier on with all the creating and everything. Just gonna adjust this eye position downward slightly. And here's the eyebrow. And now you try it and see how it goes. One of the qualities of a beautiful drawing that we really enjoy is what critics call mark making. And if you think about it, if you're just making the same mark over and over again, that's going to be a pretty boring drawing. So we're trying to learn how to get our hands to kind of twist and turn a little more as they follow these contours. And profiles, or this, as I said, is called a lost profile, is a great way to start to do that. So as often happens, I think I have slightly enlarged the face, and we often do that because psychologically, the face is obviously a lot more important to us than the rest of the head. So it's not the end of the world. I'm just going to have to sort of bring the neck down a little. And you might find yourself doing the same thing if you copied me closely. And I might need to make the hat extend a little further out from the face to balance this drawing. You see what I'm doing? I'm just sort of making everything else just a little, scaling it up a little to match the scale of that face I just drew. Okay. Now we established that the ear placement is a little lower than we would expect it because the hat is pushing it down. And this might be one thing that I would actually measure in this drawing. I'm going to check this distance from the back of the nose to the front of the ear, and I'm going to compare it to what looks similar. Top of the eyebrow to the bottom of the nose. You see how those two distances are about the same? So if we go top of the eyebrow to the base of the nose, that's this. And then we measure back from the back of the nose to the front of the ear. So that puts the front of the ear a little further back than I was going to place it. Another trick for getting a distance like that is triangulation, which we've talked about before, but that would look like this, where we could go like nostril to the front of the ear to the tip of the chin, and you see this shape of that triangle? It's a nice 45, 45, 90 triangle, and that would also get us to the same place. So that's the kind of distance we're not really used to seeing, because we don't look at lost profiles a lot, so it can be very useful to measure things like that. And the bottom of the ear lines up with this indent over here. And again, that ear is weirdly kind of squished. Okay, clean that up. And now we're going to look for some shading. Clean up your construction lines before you shade, because you can't do it after. And our first big major shadow area is along the jaw. And we can pretty much tell Klimt was right-handed, so I'm going to follow his shading direction by shading overhand. Okay, so as I was just telling one of my students in here, this drawing is not smudged. It is shaded. It's hatched, but it's hatched. A lot of it is hatched with the side of the pencil. So we can try it. It might be smudged a little bit up here. I don't know if that's on purpose or accidental, but in most of the drawing, you can still read the grain of the paper. like down here, you can definitely read the grain of the paper, which means he's shaded with the side of his pencil. I know most of you have tried doing that before, so we can experiment with that now. It'll be a lot easier if you're right-handed. And everybody try to get the sense of this fabric wrapping around the back of the cranium. And there's always the art teacher that tells you there's no lines in nature, and that's not true, and it's also not really relevant to drawing. You'll see this is very clearly outlined. He's not trying to show that boundary by shading. He's showing it with an outline. Those are aesthetic choices. A lot of beautiful drawings have a lot of heavy line work, and that's up to you. And we've got the darkest dark in this drawing is the hair underneath the hat by the back of the collar. And this drawing is obviously not on white paper. We're working on white paper, so we have a little extra work to do. If we want to show this highlight, we need to shade around it. And that's why white paper is so great. I mean, why colored paper is so great, because it saves us the trouble of doing all this. But we're going to just try to shade very, very lightly. One thing we could do is just shade the whole face very, very lightly with the side of the pencil to lay a tone on it, and then erase out our highlights like this. And there's a little bit of light there on the cheek, and a little very slight darkening for the eye socket. A little darkening under the brow. And the kind of haggard, tired expression is coming from this, reinforcing this plane change through here and here. And if we zoom in, we can get a better look at some of the shading technique here. It's pretty. So see the hollow of the cheek here? Even though he's no, I guess this is his normal righty shading through here. You'll notice all these, he's thinking his way, the hatching all reinforces a sense, our ability to read these plane changes and read the directions that the forms are moving. There's a real extra dark accent right under the nostril here. Little shading here, a little more elevation here. A little bit here and here. So you'll notice I did what probably a lot of you did, and it's a very common tendency. I just rotated his head just a little bit towards me by placing that eye a little bit too far back. So I'm need to move that eye so that the lash extends past the bridge of the nose. And that's a better effect right there. Okay, we're gonna just throw in a few details of the shirt. I'm not sure what kind of costume this is supposed to be, but look at how this change in shading direction along the bottom of the hat shows the way the hat curves under right there. And I don't know what these are. And a little bit of a cast shadow here, and then we're done. Okay, thanks at home for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Appreciate you watching. See you next time.